He was running Northside Realty. I was involved in a small mortgage operation, and I met him one day and I thought he was, the biggest business guy in Georgia. He probably was at that time.
My father had been very successful in real estate, and I knew if I didn't try real estate, and every Thanksgiving he'd be in there telling me on Thanksgiving Day, if you had gone into real estate, you'd be doing a lot better than you're doing now. So I said, what I'll do is I'll go ahead and go into real estate, and I'll be a failure, and he'll never be able to say I didn't try. And knocked on doors, did all the things nobody likes to do, but learned to accept rejection and go on to the next customer, the next client. And it was a great lesson. So it was a great training ground for politics too, because in real estate, you're causing a buyer and a seller to agree to a price on a house or a piece of land or something like that and make a transaction and make a deal. And politics the same way.
Johnny Isakson, as CEO, worked 7 days a week trying to sell real estate, trying to support his real estate agency.
The 2 decades he spent turning a local real estate business into a nationally recognized leader.
But I remember Johnny was always the best listener I was around. He looked you in the eye and he wanted to know what you had to say.
There's a reason he was a successful realtor. He is great at relationships. He is great at helping people feel comfortable, and he is great at helping people feel remembered.
He wanted us to treat each other, and he wanted us to treat the constituents as if they were customers, and that they were the most important people in the world, and he treated us that way, and I think that created cohesiveness within Team Isakson.
The business community know they have a tireless champion in Johnny, and they know that because he's always here.
Let's take those things that are tried and true, not things we think will work, but things we know will work. Let's make them the gold standard.
As a former businessman, he knows how important it is that we have budgets that work not just for the government, but for everybody who's working with the federal government. And so we said, this is an opportunity for us to show some real bipartisanship. So I think it was really important both to raise awareness of how we could fix the budget issues in Washington, but also to send a strong message about how important it is that we work together.
His background from the real estate business, I think, brings that business perspective, and it's just common sense that we ought to use a 2-year budget cycle.
Failure should not be an option for us in this case, and it's time we started finding common ground.
It's our responsibility. The American people are counting on us.
His business acumen, combined with his knowledge of how to get things done in this environment, has been absolutely vital.
He has shown how to bring business principles to the legislative process, to the Senate. When major corporations and small businesses are in trouble and they need somebody who understands the real details of business, they come to Johnny Isakson. And in the early 2000s, the airline industry was struggling all across the country. Major airlines were facing bankruptcy, and that included Delta Airlines, hometown Atlanta, Georgia. When Delta Airlines was facing bankruptcy, one of the major problems with bankruptcy would be the fact that they would get rid of the pension and destroy the retirement for over 30,000 employees.
If you'd ever told me in my teenage and early life that I'd have gotten Ted Kennedy to help me sign a bill that would save Delta Airlines and save the country's airline system, I'd say you're crazy.
It was controversial in that there were Republicans and Democrats that supported it, and there were Republicans and Democrats that opposed it very vigorously.
Delta's a great airline, the biggest employer in my state. If we add this amendment I put in that passed the Senate, Delta was able to take the structured bankruptcy rather than a straight bankruptcy. Straight bankruptcy would have wiped them out. When I looked up and saw the eyes of those flight attendants, when that vote was posted, they realized that we had passed that amendment and realized that was going to give them a chance to get the pension they worked for all their lives. I've never had a better feeling in all my lives.
The Wall Street Journal called Johnny Isakson the senator from Delta. He wears that as a badge of honor because he got in and fought for his hometown airlines in a way that not only saved the pension for those employees, but essentially made Atlanta the hub for the greatest airline in the world today.
Georgia's fortunate. We have 2 huge assets that make the difference in our state and any other state in the union. Hartsfield International Airport, which is the busiest airport in the world, 1 million passengers going through there all the time. And the Port of Savannah. The Port of Savannah is the most profitable bulk port on the east coast of the United States of America. everybody that get elected to the Senate from Georgia, or got elected to the House from Georgia, or whatever, they all had, that's the first question they'd be asked, especially if they went to Savannah. We'd gotten so close for so long, but we'd always push it off a little bit further, so we're going to get it next year.
I can't overstate, number one, the impact of the port to our economy. There are in excess of 350,000 jobs in Georgia that are generated as a result of the activity going on at the port in Savannah and the port in Brunswick.
And it's not something that you just pass a bill one year and then you wash your hands and say, I'm all done. That could be frustrating to somebody who just wants to, be a decisive CEO type and just say, well, I passed it and let's move on. That's just not how Congress works. And so Johnny has been very successful in realizing how political change happens in Congress and in the legislative body.
He fought for that when he was in the House, in the Senate. He's been doing this for 20 years. I'm new to the fight, but I was on that Port Authority. I knew what kind of return investment it had. It was over 7-1. And Johnny's been tireless about that, as he has about so many things in the state. Laid the groundwork for that and really drove that tirelessly until we finally got approval for the funding that will get that thing done now.
I got elected in 1998. It's now 2019, so it's 21 years later. We got authorized, funded, approved, and it's in construction now, the last phase.
Johnny Isakson's 40-year career as the president of the Chamber of Commerce, as a U.S. House member, as the U.S. Senator who focused on infrastructure, whether it was highways or the Port of Savannah, whether it was cybersecurity or the infrastructure of the 21st century. And Georgia's the first state to bring back nuclear power in the modern age. Johnny Isakson has been there fighting for the very fundamental aspects of the economy that we had to have to make Georgia attractive to grow a business and to bring a new business from somewhere else.
When you think big and you do big, you got to work big. And we had a lot of big obstacles to overcome.
He's able to carry a lot of water. He carries a lot of water and gets a lot of things accomplished and then does it in his way, the right way.
Johnny has the capacity of getting a result because people trust him and because he's a very skillful legislator.
You are an unmatched salesman, whether selling homes or ideas or legislation.
In a few years, Georgia will have the most available electric energy of any state in the United States of America. Best place to manufacture, best place to build, best place to live. It's a great way to end a long journey over 20 years.